This episode of The Substance is brought to you by Chris Hotchkiss, American Family Insurance, and listeners like you. You landed on The Substance, a podcast aimed at being biblical, thoughtful, and human. Join us each week as we engage the culture without the culture war. I'm your host, Philip Marinello, joined here by my buddies and co-hosts, Trevor Aiken.
Hey, hey.
And Vincent Edwards.
What's going on?
How are we doing tonight, guys?
Good.
Dude,
Excited for this episode.
it was a big day, yeah, but good day. And yeah, me too.
Excellent,
Excited for our
excellent.
guests. Hoping the girls stay in bed.
Yeah, my kids.
It's real talk.
Hopefully not running around upstairs either. The Substance, if you guys are new or if you're returning, we'll remind you, we're a Christian variety show. Each week we talk for about an hour or so about something related to Christianity, culture, or the arts. And then at the end, us, or in this case, our guest, is going to be sharing some shout outs, stuff we've been finding enjoyable or edifying. So welcome to The Substance. And this week we've got Hannah Chao of the SOLA Network. Welcome, Hannah.
It's so nice to be here. Glad to be with you all.
Yes.
Yeah, welcome.
So Hannah, you're an editor at the SOLA Network?
Yes, so I basically help put together every week a few new articles that go up on our website. I'll talk to authors, I'll edit with them, send some emails back and forth, and then work with my web team and my social media manager to get it up online and share it with the world.
Nice. And for those who don't know what the SOLA Network is, give us a quick elevator pitch of what the SOLA Network is.
Yeah, so the SOLA Network is a Christian platform to, influence the next generation of Christians, but also, us, everyday Christians who might not be. We actually started out as, a sort of more college-leaning ministry, but now we're trying to expand and just, edify the church in lots of ways. And specifically, we target the Asian American Christian who, just want to look for resources that are more culturally relevant, but also to platform those people who are Asian American Christians to get them to write and share their ideas and talk and have them be published so that, they can go on to do cool things elsewhere.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm seeing we've got articles from friends of the Substance here, in particular, Eugene Park.
Yes. Eugene used to be on staff at SOLA before he moved up to the Bay. So that's when he was down in Orange County. He was a lot more involved. But yeah, we still get him to either write for us or we'll ask the TGC very nicely if we can republish what he wrote.
My California geography is very bad, but I will look that up later.
That's LA to San Francisco, my dude.
Right.
Well, I'll pretend like that was helpful. And I understand.
That's one thing I did learn being in California is you can, from where I am in Indiana, I can drive 6 hours and I will for sure be in another state. But then you can drive 6 hours in California and still be in California.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Especially you're in north-south.
Especially.
Yeah, LA to the Bay is what? 3, 4, 5 hours?
I'm kind of a little north of downtown LA, so I can get from here to San Jose, which is kind of like the bottom-ish of the Bay Area, in 5 hours, no stops.
Yeah.
But then if you wanted to get to San Francisco proper, maybe up to 7 hours.
Yeah, the traffic gets
every time
real
I've been in California, the
Jose.
traffic has been doo-doo.
Yeah.
Yes, that is. We both take pride in how bad it is, but also like we defend it to outsiders, but for us, it's pride.
I think the biggest thing for me in San Francisco was the steep hills that they drive up, and I'm like, how does anybody get comfortable with this? I have so much anxiety right now.
So Hannah, how did you get involved in the SOLA Network, and what kind of drives your passion for that work?
So I was a journalism student back in college, but after I graduated, I didn't go into journalism. I ended up working for my church as an admin. I got married, and I kind of just let it go by the wayside. And I was okay with that. But then this one day, my pastor said, "Hey, Hannah, you did some editing in college, right?" I was like, yeah. And he was like, we're starting this, we've done this thing called the SOLA conference, and now we're making a website to kind of go with it to keep this conference in the minds of collegiates, things like that. Do you think that'd be something you're interested in helping us to run? And so I was like, yeah, definitely. So I joined on a volunteer basis and would edit maybe a couple articles a month.
Mhm.
Someone would procure it and I would edit it, go back and forth. And then one day we were like, hey, no, like we really want to push the website. So they got me a little bit of money. And so I started working on it part time and haven't stopped since. Yeah. So I love writing. I love words. I think in words. My husband puts it this way, like, you guys have seen The Matrix, right? So in The
Oh,
Of
Matrix,
course.
yes.
Which one?
okay, wait, now there
Yes.
are young children who do not know what it is. So
Yes.
and so anyway, so
We need
you
to
know,
help them.
yeah, it's true. So you see the green letters, coming down,
Sure.
the screen. That's the
Uh-huh.
Matrix. And they can read it. And my husband one day goes, Hannah, do you think if you turn the monitor sideways, you would be able to like read it? And I was like, huh, I think I could. And he's like, yeah, that I don't think that's normal. Like you shouldn't be able to read things that fast. And I was like, no, that's normal. But no, I think that's when I realized like, oh, I do read really fast and I can just process words very quickly. So I've always had a passion for reading. Writing, yes, but I'm not personally like a creative person. I like to synthesize information. So you tell
Hmm.
me to write a research paper, an essay, like I got you. If you told me to write a story, I would sit there for a week or a month. But yeah, so SOLA Network was perfect because I'm just taking all these essays or sermons or book excerpts and just making them more concise, making them shine and sparkle, and then putting it out there. So that's how I got involved, and I've loved it ever since.
That's awesome.
So
Yeah,
you're
that's
an
really
editor there.
cool.
Are you like full-time employed by Sola?
So SOLA is like my part-time gig, and then I have a full-time job as a copywriter at a marketing agency. So I'm like
Wow.
surrounded by words.
Nice.
That's like my thing.
Man, sounds
Wow.
like the dream for you.
It really is.
With all the stuff with the Sola, do you like, is that like an avenue for a lot of great learning and like spiritual benefit and stuff?
100%. I think one of the great things about SOLA now is that because we were a little bit more well known, I'm getting more articles from people who aren't from the SoCal area. That's kind of where we originally got most of our articles because these pastors would know other pastors, and then they would recommend their congregants. But now, like I have writers who are in like Australia, so I can't even say like we're always Asian American, right? It's like, oh, we're like Asian second generation.
Diaspora?
Yeah, yeah. Right. Also, I will say especially in the beginning, we were very heavily Korean American, but
Hmm.
now we're getting like more Chinese American, Japanese American, even Indian American, and that's something that I'm purposely trying to cultivate. And just especially hearing about the different experiences that the different cultures have in the church is crazy. Like
Hmm.
we had one recently by a Japanese American pastor who wrote about Japanese Christians in the internment camps in
Hmm.
after during World War II, and I
Interesting.
never thought about that. I was like, oh, there
Yeah.
were Japanese Christians there, and so for me,
Hmm.
that was really eye opening.
Wow. That sounds like a good
Yeah.
one. We should link that.
For
Yeah.
sure. So in this research, did you guys as a network see a deficiency of like Christian focus and materials in the Asian American community?
Yeah, I would say that with especially in like the publishing world like
Hmm.
TGC, Christianity Today,
Hmm.
if you aren't published somewhere, it's hard to get published first. That's just the
Sure.
way that publishing works in general.
Yep.
Even with
Like known quantities, like yeah.
exactly, right? Like, or even if
Catch
you want to write a
22,
book,
right?
they want to have, do you have 100,000 Instagram followers? Then you can
Yeah.
write a book. So one of the things for us,
We've talked
Yeah.
about that a few times on the show before.
Yeah.
yeah. So one of the things for us is
Got a ways to go.
our goal isn't to be necessarily like TGC or desiring God in terms of reach, although that'd be nice.
Mhm.
But our job, our focus is, hey, can we get people who are really smart people who just don't have that first published byline? Can we get them to write for us so that if they want to do a book proposal for to like Ivy Press or wherever, they can be like, hey, no, like I've gotten published. I'm not just sending you a random manuscript. And so for me, that's one of the reasons why I love SOLA Network is getting people to be confident in their writing and
Mhm.
getting them to do to write somewhere else. For example, like I've had a sister who wrote something for us, and then TGC asked her to write a similar within the similar vein,
Nice.
and that means she can, one day, use both those bylines to get a speaking gig or etc.
Sure.
So, I think it's a really easy way for us to build like a table. That we always do that metaphor, right? The table,
Sure.
build a
Yeah.
table,
Set the table.
and
Yeah.
then you can start networking with other tables.
You guys started in 2016, right?
Yeah, it's been, yes, but I don't think our website was launched until a little bit later.
I recently, so doing my quick research this week, I did listen to the SOLA podcast episode where you guys were talking about the episode redesign, and if he works remotely, whenever we like go big, like I'd love to just talk to, like, building websites is hard. Building
It
websites
was
is
a
real hard.
long, arduous journey.
Have any books been the result of it? We're big book fans here at the Substance. A
In
lot of our
terms of,
listeners.
yeah, so we have not had any books come out of SOLA. I do have a one person who had a book proposal, so I hope maybe it'll become a book.
Very cool.
But
Nice.
not yet. But I mean, one thing we do love is like we're now getting books to review. So
Love that. Having a platform is very good for getting books.
so our social media manager, Aaron, he's our bookworm, and has more time for reading. So he churns those out. We could probably, like, he's basically, I should also add like social media manager and book reviewer. That should really be his title.
So over the last several years, gatekeepers or people that have the power and the platforms have, for whatever reason, hopefully for good reasons, but they see the value in representation and giving folks platforms and having voices heard. What are some things that you guys have seen positively in the rise of Asian representation, and what are the, I guess, challenges that come with people going, well, hey, like, we want Asian voices? Because I imagine that would be like, oh, great, like, let us share our experiences, let us share our points of view, but then also you don't want to be commodified or tokenized either. Like, how has that been?
Yeah, so honestly, having a lot more Asian content in the media has been great for us in that we just have more stuff to write about. So from Minari to The Farewell to
Turning Red.
I guess even Turning Red, right? Yeah, that
Well,
just came out.
I think the other day you did like to tweet about Pachinko, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's what got us to be like, oh, I should get in on the show.
Yeah. So I mean that's really helped us to start conversing with the culture more directly because it's affected us. But also I think even COVID-19, the Asian pandemic, right, and all the attacks on like elderly Asian residents, and also women, I think has really put Asian Americanness at the forefront of a lot of Asian minds. So actually, when you talk about representation, I think it's less especially for SOLA, it's less that we want to push ourselves to be represented in other places. I think it's more like a place where we can really talk amongst ourselves. I think that's kind of, and so that puts a lot less pressure on me, but also it gives me a space where we can talk together and really bounce ideas off each other as Asians. And so, honestly, the challenge isn't so much to go out and try to fill all these holes in other organizations, but it's really been this creating vocabulary within ourselves to talk about these things, because I don't think there is that much, especially in the Asian American Christian sphere, of talking about some of these things. For example, our Turning Red article, I actually haven't seen the movie yet, but the person who wrote it, who's on our editorial board, his name is Moses. He, had read some reviews and, was kind of puzzled by how other people had interpreted some of the things about what the red panda represented. And so he was using all these new terms that even I hadn't, even read before. And I was like, you have to go a little more detail. He called it diagonalization, where it's not so much, like this binary line between two things, but trying to find like the connection between these 2 points. But yeah, even bringing up these new terms so that Asian Americans amongst themselves can talk and understand and be on the same level, I think has been really crucial and really fun for Asian Americans to be able to dialogue among themselves.
Yeah.
That particular article, a lot of the Asian folks who I follow, particularly on Twitter, I've seen share it and talk positively about it. I still haven't seen it either. I do want to see it, but I would say, I mean, from the white male perspective, like a lot of the articles I read that were unfavorable on it, I read it and I was like, a lot of their specific complaints didn't seem, I don't want to say valid, but like fair or consistent, as if like this is the first Disney movie to feature any sort of rebellion or
Yeah.
generational conflict or things like that. And I don't want to be too unfair either. There are a lot of
almost going
other
back.
forces that like unnecessary
I'm
polarize
thinking
it.
about the one you sent me, Phil, and like it's almost that Christian. Remember going back to like when we talked about Christian worldview analysis, and it's like
Yeah.
everything's a worldview. This
Boil
is
it all
coming out
down
of
to
this
argument
worldview.
points.
Like
Yeah.
it's oppositional to us. Like that kind of level of analysis.
Here's
Not
what the
like,
gospel has to say about turning red.
or yeah, stuff like that.
I had a quick question. And you can cut this entire section out
I-
if you
This is
if
gonna
you
be a
desire.
20-minute podcast with all the stuff you're gonna let me cut, y'all.
I'm just saying you can.
Go ahead. Go for it.
This particular movie just came out. I haven't seen it yet, but I get the premise of it, called Uma.
Oh, Omma. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, with Sandra
Looks
Oh
good.
in it. So when you see a film like that, my brain immediately goes to, this film is probably going to dive into something that actually is more substantive than it is scary. And so that's what makes it like exciting for me, even though like I live in a small town. It's not even like it at the AMC right now, so I can't even see it. But when I do see it, I'm tacking on to that through the trailers. But with something like that and more awareness and just this focus on like, hey, we have Asian Americans that we haven't focused on. And we're talking about in depth, their culture, the things that they understand, the traditions that they have. How do you balance the I'm learning about Asian culture, or I'm tokenizing or just kind of
Appropriate.
exploiting it? Yeah, exploiting or appropriating the Asian culture.
Yeah. I think the hard thing about the exploitation appropriation culture is that, it is there's so many levels, and people's comfort levels are gonna be so different based on who they are.
Mhm.
And so I personally am not gonna watch Oma because I cannot do horror movies. So
I got you.
but yeah, I think for me it comes from, are you telling a specific story? I think the more specific a family story is, whether it's Chinese American, Taiwanese American, Vietnamese American, the more specific the story is, the more I can appreciate it, and I don't feel like it's tokenization. I think
Hmm.
that's why
The more
that's why
like genuine it is.
yeah. I think that's why whenever it's like the one Asian person in the sitcom, that's when I'm like, "Ugh, like, don't even put us there. It's
I
fine."
got you.
Right? You know what I mean? And sometimes it's done well. I don't watch all sitcoms, but I think for me, for example, so again, I haven't seen Oma, but for example, what's like Crazy Rich Asians. It's not that specific, right? As in, like, is there really a girl who got engaged to a really rich guy, went to Singapore, and like that's, I think, a little bit more fairy tale. But even in that, there is genuineness in terms of like, there's scenes where they're like making dumplings together, or the scenes with the mother and potential mother-in-law and the potential daughter-in-law having like this like kind of fight over first and second, or immigrant and second generation like ideals. So for
Mhm.
me, like, those moments matter. Granted, in a blockbuster, it's not going to be as small scale, like small little intimate moments that happen in our everyday lives. But I think if those things are there, then I always appreciate those.
Mhm.
Even like in Shang-Chi, there's a scene where they're like in a karaoke bar, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that totally happens, right? No, like,
I'm
so
really bummed I missed that one in the theater. That was a lot of fun.
it was
Yeah.
really fun, and all the movie, that bus scene where they like give
That was an
homage.
incredible scene.
Yeah, where they give homage to lots of other movies. Like,
yeah.
that was really cool.
Yeah.
So I want to take it back to something. I want to finish this thread here. It kind of ties in with Vince's question and the SOLA like what are you, and you've talked about it a little bit, but what are the goals of SOLA for Asian readers and non-Asian readers? Like are non-Asian readers like a factor, or is it like, hey, come here and learn? Like what would you hope that like the Asian folks who read it, how are they ministered to, and maybe how could non-Asian readers come to it?
Yeah, I think the hope for SOLA, is twofold, right? To encourage the church, and that's everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the second is to platform Asian American writers and thinkers so that more people will hear what they have to say, right? And so when I go through my SOLA articles and think about, the things that we want to publish, those are like my two goals. Um, and a lot of those dovetail, but I mean, for example, like one of our most read articles, perennial, like it doesn't matter if I just look at the metrics, it's what's wrong with having sex before marriage? That is our
Okay.
number one most read article ever since it's been published, because people are always Googling that question, and now
Sure.
Google's like, I guess they're an authority, and so, and it's. I don't think it doesn't have Asian American in the title. It doesn't. I don't think it explicitly mentions it very much in the article itself. But it's written by one of our now SOLA editorial board members,
Nice.
and he's a pastor, right? And so that's edifying the church, and yet it's
Sure.
also platforming him. And now he has you guys probably know his podcast. Oh, what is it called? It's the one that he does with Eugene.
Off the pulpit.
Off the pulpit. It's by Thomas Wayne from Off the Pulpit.
So like
Right?
I'll
Nice.
say, like for me, and I try to keep not try, like I feel like I do keep a pretty diverse circle. You guys, just following you guys on Twitter, you guys have put a number of people on my radar who I follow now and look forward to seeing their posts, and I listen to some of their podcasts.
Mhm.
I found it very helpful.
Yeah, so honestly, like, so the best thing for us is for you guys or any of your listeners, like, if you subscribe to our monthly newsletter, right, you'll get, the best of, whatever we ran that month. We also have like a weekly Friday roundup where we'll do like our whatever we published that week, and then things from around the web, whether Asian American or not, things like that. Like that's what we're trying to do, is just to be a place where, oh, like this article on what's another popular one we had that was like Advent calendar for couples, like something you could do with your significant other over and that was really popular because people just kept coming back to do the next thing because there's like 30 days worth of
Nice. That's a nice
yeah,
little trick. I like
right.
it.
That's good.
Yeah, so that's so things like that where we're just trying to edify the entire church and platform Asian American voices or Asian American adjacent voices to encourage them.
Nice.
Love
That's
that.
awesome. So we had an episode with Kyle Strobel several episodes ago. I think it was in the 60s. And in that conversation, we talked about the heart of a person who is decently passionate for the Lord, but there's this underlying pursuit of the platform and getting seen by everybody. And so it's more of like, yeah, I want to do it for Jesus, but I want everybody to see me do it for Jesus, kind of thing. And
Mhm.
so is there anything within the tenets of SOLA to make sure that the individuals who are coming to you guys are keeping their intentions pure?
Yeah, I mean, I will say that, because we're not gigantic, I don't feel like we have a huge problem yet as trying to get people who are trying to build their platform.
Sure.
But I mean, I will say though that you know, the best way we get our writers is from pastors who recommend their congregants or from the pastors themselves. And so
That's awesome.
honestly, like in terms of personal vetting, like I don't do very much.
Sure.
Or I just don't have a lot of resources. But yeah, that is something that I look
Same.
for in just the writing itself. It's just seeing like, are they loving Jesus in this article? Are they loving people? And are they trying to find a way to encourage people to continue to do those things? Especially, I think the best articles are the ones where people are very vulnerable about their experiences and their thoughts. And so, and then the other thing too is, if we do, there are times where we'll have to take down an article, because of I don't know, like a moral failure, or for example, we had articles that we published after Ravi Zacharias died.
Mm.
He was a Christian apologist
Mm-hmm.
who it came out that he had sexually abused women. And so we had to take down, I think, 2 articles. And then one of the authors actually wrote an article like apologizing for, because he had been affiliated very distantly from RISM, his
RZIM.
RJIM, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
RZIM. And so he, wrote about that experience like very honestly and openly. And,
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciated that. And I know that our readers did too. And so, um, yeah, I think that is one thing that we can do is because we're small, we can, the people that I'm in touch with, I'm pretty much stay in touch with, we can always ask. And so that was something where he reached out to me and said, hey, like, I want to write a response. And so we were able to do that quite easily.
Yeah. Would you say that there's anything in particular that Asian American Christians are facing, like challenges that they are having uniquely in that community?
Oh man, I mean, that's always the problem with talking about Asian Americans. Is like there are so many of
Sure.
us. Like so, okay, so like I'll just do some that come into my head from just the conversations I've had. So, for example, for Chinese American churches, a lot of them are still very much part of their Chinese speaking ministries,
Mhm.
and so they actually have to work very directly with them, and so there's a lot of conflicting, not necessarily bad in a bad way, but right, conflicting values. What's the direction? How do we share property? How do we share budget? Things like that. Like that's things that they're still working through, and a lot of it's not as common for them to break off or to church plant. They pretty much stay together.
Interesting.
And that's common. I see that a lot where there's a church. It's usually a Baptist church, and then they also have like a Chinese church that's affiliated but not the same. But
Some of them have 3 languages because of Mandarin,
oh,
English,
wow.
and a Cantonese service, and it's just
Mm.
it's crazy. Like
Mm.
American churches, you got 1, right? It's like
Yeah.
what do you think? And then right, and then whereas the Korean American church, one of the things that they're going through is right now the push has been pretty much to just break off, like start your own. Either like the mother church will give its blessing and they'll move
see.
out, or they'll just start an independent church somewhere. My church, actually, which some churches are trying, is an interdependent model where we'll have separate budgets and separate staff, but we'll share the same
Interesting.
campus and share the same like education ministry, for example, right? Because
Mm.
the English ministry would probably supply, or the English church would supply the teachers and staff for the kids, but then usually the immigrant church is bigger, they might provide more of the budget, things like that, and then that's a whole thing.
Yeah.
And then in a
Huh.
Japanese American church, they're actually the most. I'm actually trying to find someone to talk to about this. They're actually the most fascinating because they've been here for generations. Like I told you, right? They were there in the internment camps, so they're like 3rd, 4th, 5th generation Japanese American Christians and they're trying to figure out what it means to be a church too. But no one speaks Japanese anymore. But then like and things like that. So it's wild. It's like
Man.
it's a lot of microcosms even within the Asian American church.
Huh.
Mm.
Yeah, that's super interesting, especially about like some of the multilingual stuff, because I know different cultural contexts entirely, but that happens here in Texas where you'll have a lot of Hispanic speaking churches and then like we'll partner together and like use a building, start a ministry. It's like some of the outreach that you want to do is going to be involved with people having church services in their language. Maybe I would call it an immigrant church. In some cases it is, some cases it isn't. I don't know if that's the right term, but some of the dynamics there are really interesting because it's like, especially like you see people coming and going, you want a fellowship and you're like, I don't know your language at all, so like what do I do? Hi, good to see you.
Yeah.
Have a great Sunday.
And is there a way, because I've even had friends who are like, I don't want to go to a church that's homogenous in any way, all black, all Asian, all white. I just because the picture of heaven that we get in Revelation is one that is multicultural. A lot of nations, a lot of tongues are all together worshiping Christ. And so is there any effort to make sure that, though we want to make sure that Asian voices are being heard, encouraging those churches or all churches to make sure that they're welcoming of all nationalities, all races, all ethnicities, and what's the work behind that?
Oh yeah, that's something definitely that Asian American churches are talking about all the time, right? Where, what does it look like? Also, like, should we even exist? It's like a question that gets thrown
Sure,
at
I
us.
get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eugene
Um,
brought that up too, I feel
yeah.
like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, and I think it always comes down to, I think, yeah, if any gospel church, right, any Jesus loving church makes it impossible for someone who is a different race, ethnicity, socioeconomic background to come in, like, yeah, that's probably not a Jesus loving church, right? Like,
Mm.
and so I think even for my church, right, we're predominantly Korean American, but we do have white Americans, Filipino Americans, Chinese Americans come and be a part of our ministry, and it's great. And I think the hope is that we're a church that loves Jesus, and that's with an Asian flavor, like kimchi flavored, right? Um,
Okay. All right. All right. I
right, and
like.
maybe and if you fermented vegetable flavored, right, a little bit more, right? Other cultures have fermented vegetables, right? Like, if you come and you like the flavor, like, stick around. We'd love to have you, and you can also, maybe if it's a little too strong, you can start with the bulgogi. You can start with the cream. That's fine too. But yeah, I think remembering too that just because some place is multicultural doesn't mean that it's being led diversely, or that
Say
it's
that.
being
Mm-hmm.
Say
or
that.
that yeah, or that it's being it's not one culture, like, pulling the strings. And so
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's going to be with every church, and something that every church has to think about it. And I think it goes back to what I said at first, like, does someone who's new, when they come in, do they feel the love of Christ, and do they feel welcome, even if it smells like kimchi? Like, that's how we're gonna know.
So, Hannah, I have a question. Apple and Spotify do not give us ethnic metrics, but I'm just gonna
Oh.
put a guess out there that we don't have a majority of Asian listeners. So I'm curious, a little bit tongue in cheek. Like, what are some things that we can maybe avoid? Like, what are some of the bad questions and comments you guys can kind of get sometimes with people who are maybe well-meaning? Like, maybe what are some things to avoid asking or saying, or like, how can folks genuinely express, like, we want to get to know you and your experience? And
Yeah, I think I think that's interesting because, as an Asian American, I do often think about my identity a lot, right?
Mhm. Sure.
Even in small, not like in my face blaring like a neon sign, but I think just asking questions about their experiences is so helpful, because
Mm.
inevitably the fact that I am Asian will come up,
Mm.
right? Like, whether, oh yeah, I had to, I know this is very stereotypical, but it's very true. Like, I had weird food in my lunchbox growing up. That was weird for, my friends, or a lot of us were latchkeys, or had to go straight to our parents' laundromats. Or
Did you grow up in California?
I did. I grew up in Southern California my whole life. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, so for me, for example, right, like, I would go straight from school to, like, my parents' dry cleaners after school, and
Mm.
that's where I would do homework or watch TV on a tiny little
Yeah.
monitor, right? And that's a formative part of my growing up experience. So I think you don't have to ask necessarily, like, so what was Asian about your life, or a variation of
Right.
it's gonna come out, right? Because
Sure.
I've thought about it. I think about it when I'm in a, I've when I would go to, like, so I went to USC for college. So I went to USC. The first thing I thought is, like, where are the Asian Christians at? Because I'm gonna at least start. Maybe I'm not gonna end up there, but I'm gonna start there, and then
Mhm.
maybe I'll check out other ones too. But I was like, I want to at least have one place where I know that I already kind of know the language. I already kind of know, like, some of the inside conversations. So yeah.
Yeah.
Some of the things that you were saying brought to my mind is like how it's important for people to have their own space too, right? Like, you had said some stuff about like that, especially with respect to women. I just wanted to hear what you had to say as far as what goes on right and wrong and like needs to change or needs to improve around like women's ministries, the whole concept like of women's ministries and what that means and everything that the mind fills that bucket with when you think of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think we have a lot of folks on this podcast who probably resonate with some of that and benefit with that.
Yeah, so at one of our SOLA Network conferences, I said we had a women's panel, and I said, like, women. I was like, I think this might be slightly controversial, but you should demand more. And I think that's true. My new controversial thing to say is, women need less Bible studies, and women need more Bible studies. So I say,
Yes.
so
yes,
yes,
I'm excited for this.
right. So I think an easy way for a church to say that we're helping women is to say, okay, here's a Bible study, right? Here's a book.
Yeah.
Here's an hour. Here's
Sure.
a conference room.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah,
Like,
and we know the common names that are going to be on the bottoms of those Bible studies, right? Like, we don't need to call them out, but yeah, and they're wonderful women. Yeah.
But if that's all that the church is doing to support women, we don't need those. That's okay. Right? Like, at the same time, I do think there is such a need for women to become more confident in their Bible reading, more confident in teaching their children, in exhorting their spouses and their friends. And if there isn't a real support from the ministry of the church to really do that, then it's just not going to happen. And so that's why I think that's my new controversy.
Yeah.
We need less Bible studies, but more Bible studies. And so, I think that's something that women can and should, ask for, and that, pastors and leaders have to really understand the difference between those two things. For example, right? If there's a woman teacher who's gifted and just is doing this like Bible study book in her home, it's like not sanctioned or whatever, but they hear about it, just bring her in, have it, and figure out how you can duplicate that. Or if, there's really low Bible literacy at the church, just start with connecting women, through a brunch or through, I don't know, some other activity. I'm not sure. But I haven't gone that far. I've only gone that one sentence.
Yeah.
So.
More Bible studies, but less Bible studies. I think that's good. And it kind of speaks to like having stuff that's targeted, I guess. My follow-up to that would be, I'm just kind of thinking, like, what do you think got women's ministries, right, air quotes again, into the place where it is now? Was it like a man mindset, like trying to think, all right, this is what the ladies need,
this is what the girls need?
Yeah, let's, and like kind of processing it through the lens of like a husband to his wife kind of thing, and coming at it from that direction. And so does it need like a more woman focus, or is it like we're not even processing it and handling that way? We're like, y'all over here and us over here.
So when I think about women's Bible studies, I think a lot about BSF, Bible Study Fellowship. And I just think that in this online, post-COVID world, I don't know like how much I want to drive in the middle of the day to like a church and like do Bible study, just because I think a lot more women are working now. I feel like BSF came from a very like, moms are at home, kids are at school, let's like hang out and like read the Bible together. So I think with a lot of Bible studies, I think the problem is they've stagnated. I don't think there's been any innovation in it at all. Like in that, like, yeah, like where are there Bible studies that we can have for women that are more flexible, or where they're, I don't know, like I would love to see like a women's Bible study where it could be over like Discord or Zoom, and I think that, yes, it's a little uncomfortable to, and we want to be like embodied and together, but at the same time, moms are busy. If I have a newborn, but I really want women's fellowship, like maybe Zoom Bible study could like be really useful. And as a mom, as a woman trying to do these things, I think there are ways we can innovate. Although there is one thought. So I'm reading this book called The Great Sex Rescue. I don't remember who the author is off the top of my head, but it's written as a Christian response to a lot of the love, marriage, sex books that are out there. And I was like, this is so good. I want to read it with some of my girlfriends and guy friends because they read it too. And my husband's like, why don't you just like talk about it over Zoom with your friends?
Start a thing?
Yeah. And I was like, and that's probably why I mentioned it in that way just now. And I was like, oh, like I should. And I wonder what that's going to look like. But that is something that's like kind of been in my head. Like what does a book club look like now? Right? Post pandemic, digital first world where people don't even like to read in the same way as they did. I don't want to say they don't like to read because people still read tons of and consume tons of content, but what does that look like? And I don't know. But yeah.
So it's not necessarily a case, or is it, where it's like the church is running programs for guys over here that are like very guy focused and really like they should do that thing, that analog thing, and not exclude women or do it for women so much as like
I
maybe
see.
there needs to be a new thing.
Yeah, I think I don't maybe there's been some of that in the history. I think but I think right now it's just um a um any sort of Bible study at a church, whether it's split by gender or not, I think has to have considerations for women who especially have kids, right? Like is babysitting like something offered at a
Parents
regular
in general, it's a real thing.
in general.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
It's
Like,
a
is
real
childcare
thing.
provided? I mean, once I had kids, I was like, yeah, I'm always, is childcare provided? Is childcare provided?
Mhm.
And again, I think it goes back to more like, oh, we had this thing for the guys. Let's give the women a Bible study. If that's the case, yeah, then that's like, we don't need that.
That's
Yeah.
good.
I know with conversations with my wife, oftentimes not only do we need something new, and granted, I've never been to a women's Bible study.
And like sneak in in your early Theo bro days.
Big Mama's house undercover there.
Oh my gosh, what a throwback.
No, but I guess the report that I've heard from my wife or other young women is that sometimes they want stuff that's deeper as well. Because sometimes, at least from what I'm hearing, it can be pretty surgical, and it's just like, here's the layer on top, and do this, and
Yeah.
don't do that, and you'll be a great person and a great wife and a great mom. Goodbye, kind of thing. And it's like, but my wife's a deep thinker, and so she's like, yo, like, let's get into epistemology and let's get into hermeneutics, and like let's dig in, let's eat the meat. I'm tired of the milk. So how would you encourage pastors, leaders, parishioners to especially the ones who have a natural desire for the deeper things of the Word of God? How would you encourage them to pursue that?
Oh, I'm so encouraged by your wife. I think that is like what we like want. And yeah, churches are going to have layers of people who how much they can process. And so I think one is that yeah, churches should pay for seminary education for women who want it. Easy, simple. Boom, right? Like
Nice.
give them a
Sure.
scholarship. Give them, if you see a woman who's like, hey, like she's hungry for the word, she's hungry for all the ologies, the soteriology, the Christology, whatever.
Sure.
Yeah, be like, hey, do you want to take these online classes at Gordon Conwell or Calvin College or Trinity? I don't even know if they have online programs, all of them. But anyway, right? Like, send them and
Support, like physically, monetarily support them.
yeah, completely. You're right. I know that, TGC even has like before the pandemic, they would go around the country, TGC Women's, and do, mini conferences, Bible conferences. Like, yeah, like, put the money where the mouth is and, send women to these places. And then, yeah, this takes a lot of trust within a church, but, if you do want to let people be a little more autonomous and create Bible study groups where they do go deeper, that's great.
Mhm.
But I think the other thing too is, yeah, a lot of times these women's conferences can seem shallow or light. Worst case scenario, it's like do's and don'ts of like be a good wife, be a good, whatever, homemaker.
Mhm.
But I think I feel like it's a symptom of not already finding ways to help women cultivate relationships with each other in the church to begin with. And that's hard.
Mm.
It's hard in general, especially with COVID. Like how many friends that I thought were friends, I'm like, oh no, they were actually acquaintances that I saw very frequently. And to build deeper relationships, it's gonna be hard. And yet the church can be such a safe place to start. And so yeah, I mean, my encouragement, to people like your wife and women who want to go deeper is, yeah, like make seminary an option. You can go very slowly. You can go like a semester. You can audit. You can go class a semester. All these seminaries, they want your tuition money anyway, so they'll say yes.
True.
And number two is, yeah, like ask your pastor or leaders if they know of other women who you can like hang out with, talk to, and do these Bible studies. And yes, time is hard and everyone's busy, but I believe that there can be ways to do it.
Amen.
So tell the listeners, especially the Californian listeners, tell us a little bit about the upcoming Asian American Leadership Conference you guys have.
Yes, so SOLA is proud to announce that on April 25th to 27th, so very, very soon, we are having a conference that we're hosting with TGC in Cali, which is the Korean American leadership group from the PCA. And we are having a bunch of speakers coming down to Orange County, California. If you want to come, I believe there's still spots at aalc.network. I'm sure you guys can link in the show notes, right?
For sure.
Yep. We can
Yeah,
do it.
so if you want to come up, if you are actually, I don't know how like late the registration will go, but if you can come, you should come. And
we can share it on Twitter like now.
okay,
And then by the
sure.
time they listen to this, hopefully
Yeah.
they will have already registered.
Yeah.
There you go.
But yeah, it's going to be a time where we just have some great speakers talking to encouraging and exhorting leaders in the church at large.
Mhm.
And we have people like Julius Kim, who's the president of the Gospel Coalition. We also have Corey Ishida, who is the founding pastor of Evergreen SGV. I believe the pastor there now is Rocky Sato, who was one of the coaches of the Seattle Seahawks back when they won a Super Bowl. Mhm.
Oh,
And anyway, so he was in ministry for like, I don't know, like 30 years, same church, super faithful guy. And we also have other wonderful men and women who are going to just speak and encourage. So if you want to, come out and listen, be blessed. I'm sure we'll have like content from it on our website in the days and weeks afterwards. But if you want to be there in person, it is happening.
Well, very nice. We will be sure
Awesome.
to link that in the show notes for any of our California natives. And you said this will not be recorded and
Oh yeah,
broadcasted?
it is not live streamed, but
Exclusive.
I know we'll have some content out from it.
Okay, that's good. It's a shame to let the content go.
Exactly.
I mean, not just for having content, but like the value of all those people in that room and that time. You want to have recordings, videos, etc. It just won't be live streamed.
Exactly.
Got it. Well, before we hit shout outs here, Hannah, we got one last thing. Our audience would be very interested in hearing about your brush with stardom. Tell us about your viral Taylor Swift TikTok.
You did your research. Oh man. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, I am a gigantic Taylor Swift fan. I pretty much been obsessed with her since 2020. Maybe a little before 2019, 2020 around there. Especially
a recent convert.
It's pretty recent.
Yeah, so I was always like, I knew who she was. I was always like a fan, but around 2019, her album Lover, which is the one before Folklore, came out. Yeah, I was just like, oh, like I'm hooked. And so I joined what's called Stan Twitter, which is another way of saying like super fandom Twitter.
Mhm.
And I eventually amassed a pretty big following because what I would do is I would analyze her lyrics because, writer, journalism major, I would talk about like the metaphors she uses and the wordplay, things like that. And so I got a pretty big following. And then one day I was on TikTok and she had joined TikTok. And so I just made a very silly TikTok asking her, how we should consume her latest album, which is her re-recording of her album Red. And so as a joke, because, the album drops midnight Eastern, which is 9 p.m. Pacific. And so I asked her, should we listen to the whole thing first? Should we listen to the new tracks that she was releasing? They're called, bonus tracks, vault tracks. Should we listen to this epic 10-minute version of her best song ever, All Too Well, first? She was also doing interviews that night on like one of the Jimmys and Seth Meyers. At first, so as a joke, I was like, there's a lot of things going on, Taylor. Like, can you just, let us know? Yeah, and this was like a couple weeks before the album was dropping, but the day of, so Thursday, because it technically drops midnight Friday.
Sure.
I wake up to my phone blowing up from all these notifications. And I'm just like, what is going on? It is way too early. And my friend had been like, ha, ha, like I could see like a tweet, like, ha ha, wait till Hannah wakes up. And I was like, what are you talking about? And then I opened the Twitter app first, and there's what are called update accounts where they basically post every single like sneeze that Taylor Swift does. And I see my face as a post. And I was like, why is my face on an update account? And it is because Taylor Swift had commented on my TikTok and they had screenshotted it. It's Taylor basically saying, hey, like, thanks for asking. Like, just listen to the album all the way through. Like, you know, like, don't skip anything. Like, you know, I love you. Something like that, like some hearts or something.
Yeah.
I flip. It is 5:30 in the morning. My husband is like sleeping peacefully next to me. I'm staring at my phone, being like, "What do I do?"
Taylor interacted with me.
No, it was. I have, I think, over 500,000 views on that TikTok now because she liked and commented. It showed up on a bunch of my friends' like For You page, the first TikTok page, and they were like, Hannah, what happened? And I was like, surprise, I'm a Taylor Swift fan, like a really big one that, you know, I kind of kept secret, but now you know. And I had planned the day to like relax. I was going to get a pedicure, manicure, you know, to have my wine ready, you know, to listen to the album. I was exhausted by 5:45 a.m.
Well, it's nice to know other people do that with albums. It's like, I feel like if Kendrick ever drops, I want to take the day off.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
100%.
Well, he did. You know, he won a Grammy the other day for a song.
Did he?
The Grammys rose on?
Yeah, I know the Grammys happened.
I didn't.
I didn't even look at the winners of anything.
Okay, he won.
I know John Baptiste won a bunch.
Oh, no, wait. No, that's not last year.
No, Family Ties is new.
Rap Performance 2022. For Family Ties, it's for performance. New. He won.
Interesting.
Yeah, he won.
Nice.
Okay. He was not at the Grammys, though.
It's a good track. I just need an album.
Right, exactly. we need the discography.
Well, Kendrick and Taylor do have one song together, so that's actually a great
Bad Blood remix.
Yeah, so and it went #1. So thanks, Kendrick. That was thanks to him.
That's hilarious. Here at The Substance, we're trying to keep it biblical, thoughtful, and human, and what's more human than needing insurance? Even though we don't know what life has in store for our homes and cars, we can still prepare. Introducing the Damage Doesn't Have to Be Too Damaging policy from American Family Insurance. Insure carefully, dream fearlessly, and listen biblical, thoughtful, and humanly.
If you're one of our listeners in the Kansas City area and you're looking to purchase a home or even to get a second opinion on the home you already have to make sure your rates are competitive, contact Chris Hotchkiss at 913-268-8200 today. American Family Mutual Insurance Company, SI, and its operation company, 6000 American Parkway, Madison, Wisconsin.
One segment that we do have that we super enjoy with our guests is Substance Shoutouts. This segment is basically just anything that you've been reading, podcasts you've been listening to, songs you've been enjoying, just anything that has been edifying or just enjoyable. Share that with the audience today.
Yeah, while I'm very tempted to do a Taylor Swift song now that that's in my mindset, I will refrain, but I have to shout out the film Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Maybe that's what we talked about online.
Yes, maybe.
Can't wait for that.
Yeah. Okay. Everything Everywhere All at Once is an amazing movie. I watched it with my husband and then some friends, and we just could not stop talking about it. The director, basically, his tongue-in-cheek log line is like, if your mother went into the Matrix. And I was like, that's pretty good. So
Daniels, I'm so excited for that.
Yeah,
I
had not watched Swiss Army Man.
So strange.
But, I read the thing afterwards, and I was like,
it's very strange. It's very, very strange.
It sounds like the opposite of something that an editor would like. Everything, everywhere, all at once.
Okay, but that's the thing. They crafted it so precisely because there are books where, gosh, I can't remember, Cloud Atlas, right? Where he also wrote the Bone Clocks, where you just have to, where things just
it's a multiverse story.
Yeah, it just has to fit
like non-linear,
just right, and they do it so well. And yes, I will say, if you are a little bit more on the conservative side. There are some jokes that are a little bit crass, I will say, but the meaning behind the movie about our destiny, about what is the purpose in life? Does it matter if there's a purpose in life?
Mm.
What does it mean to build relationships where in a world where it seems like our decisions are just so bizarre? I wouldn't even say purposeless, but just bizarre.
Yeah, it looks very human.
It is so human.
Maybe we'll have you back when it gets a wide digital or home video release.
A24.
We could talk
Yeah,
about
it's
you
it.
go.
I mean, A24 kind of
Crushing
had
it.
some misses recently. My husband watched
Okay.
Lamb, did not like it.
I can't wait for Lamb. I don't want to
Oh,
hear. I mean,
okay.
maybe it's a crazy
Okay,
premise.
okay,
It looks like it could go hard one way or the other.
He didn't like.
Yeah,
He also didn't like The Lighthouse. Is that also A24?
Oh yeah.
Anyway,
that's
Anyway.
A24.
but maybe he just doesn't like very lighthousey movies. Anyway, but Everything Everywhere All at Once. Michelle Yeoh is fantastic. The actor who plays her husband, I can't remember his name, but he played the little sidekick in Indiana Jones
Yeah, this is his first movie since
and the Goonies. Yeah. He's been out. Yeah, and he
a lot of years.
amazing. Yeah, and there's a new the new actress, a newer actress who plays the daughter. She's fantastic too. Jamie Lee Curtis is. I did not realize she was in the movie. I didn't really watch the trailer, I guess, because she's really prominently featured. But and yes, the sausage fingers are very weird.
Can't wait to see this movie.
I will tell you, my wife has watched a few A24 movies,
They're great.
and she just has a bad taste in her mouth. She says, if it's A24, I will not watch it.
Okay, that's the thing.
Minari was a
Yeah,
They,
no,
they
so
push the envelope. They're about
hit
original visions.
I think she
hit
was
or miss.
horribly disappointed by The Green Knight because she saw the trailers
What?
for that.
Oh,
And she was like, all right, this looks like it's going to be a dope film.
She was
And then we went to go see it in the theater, and she walked
Didn't
out
like
like,
it?
I absolutely just did not enjoy this film. I don't like A24.
okay.
And so ever since, she's just like, she can't get with it.
Try this one. Yeah, try this one. It is. I am gonna. It is a trip. There's a lot of
Oh, yeah.
color and a lot of
I'll tell her.
I'm
things flying
excited.
around.
I think we should put that on our substantive cinema list for the future.
no 100%.
There you go.
100%.
All right.
Anything else, or
If
just
I'm
that
wrong,
one?
invite me back and I'll
Yeah,
fight
sure.
you.
Have you come back to comment on it? That'd be perfect.
Yeah.
Anything else?
To shout out. The only other shout out is I started running again today after a long hiatus, and I feel both amazing and exhausted. So if you would like to feel like me, amazing and exhausted, I would like to shout out running.
There you go.
Just
Shout out to running.
Running one
Get
foot.
your feet move. Hey, it's
front of
about
the
to be
other.
summer.
Hey,
You know, the evenings are long. Go ahead
that
and get it.
cardio.
Just get,
Exactly.
but please, listeners, do yourself a favor and like get a proper pair of shoes when you go running. Like, don't just go out Floridians in your flip flops. I see you.
Yeah.
Don't do
And
it.
maybe get a knee brace if you need it.
Your
Just,
Converse.
preserve those
Take
knees.
care of yourselves.
Compression socks.
Drink your water.
There you go.
Lots
Yeah.
of water,
Stay
yes.
hydrated.
And then, just start out small.
You
Run
know,
around
the
the block
substance.
first.
Your grandparents. Yeah.
Or just walk. Just walk.
Walking's good too.
Yeah, walk for a couple
Great.
hours.
Bicycle. Hannah, for anybody who wants to connect with you or the SOLA Network or the stuff you're doing online, your editorial work, what are the places they can find you, find your work?
100% sola.network. It's just 2 words with a dot in the middle. That's where all of our content is. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at Loud Hannah, Loud Hannah. And then if you really, really want to follow my Taylor Swift account, it is at sipping, like drinking something, sipping August, like the month. It comes from her album Folklore, where she sings about things slipping away like August, the month.
Nice.
Okay. Awesome.
All right. There you go. Well, Hannah, thank you so much for your time tonight, your insights. Lots of fun talking with you and laughing with you this evening.
This was really fun. Thanks, guys, so much.
Thanks for doing this, Hannah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
appreciate you.
Listeners,
Another
thank you so much for joining us for
good
this
episode.
wonderful episode with Hannah Chao of the SOLA Network, editor, and just very thoughtful and fun person to interact with.
Absolutely.
Listeners, you know what it is. If you like the substance, if you value the substance, if it's something that you look forward to and find enjoyment and edification in, we'd love it if you join us in supporting. The two best ways you can do that are in the Anchor link in the show notes. You can sign up monthly for $5 or $10 a month. We love and cherish each and every one of you who do that. It's really helping us as we kind of make future plans, hopefully try to level up. Maybe get merch going one of these days here. Or if monthly support is not really your game, you can hit us kind of like our digital tip jar. That's on Cash App at $the Substance Pod. We appreciate everybody who gives. Sorry about that, Trev. Please take that out.
No, it's all staying in there. Joke's on you.
Visit www.thesubstancepod.com. There you can listen to the episode. You can comment under our comment section under each episode. Tell us what you thought about today's episode. Anything that came to your mind, what you liked, what you disliked. That would be absolutely beneficial to us. Our socials are on the homepage in the upper right corner, and dropping brand new.
Ooh.
We have an additional page on the website called Bless Your Playlist, where our Spotify playlist.
Like, where's this going? Oh, yeah, we do have that now.
We do have that now on the website. So if you want to hear the songs that we've shouted out or just the songs that we like, absolutely go to that and listen to our Bless Your Playlist. We call it the Blessed Playlist.
Does it have a splish splash warning on it?
Yeah, it does have a splish splash warning. So if you scroll down to the bottom, it does say some of the songs may have some strong language. So listener discretion is advised.
Your Slight Change of Plans podcast is on this somehow.
That's amazing. How'd that get on there?
Interesting. I guess that's a track that it just pulled in. Interesting.
So yeah, so if you enjoy some of the shout outs that our guests make or some that we make of certain songs or podcast episodes, we're going to try to update that as often as possible. But go to thesubstancepod.com and enjoy the Blessed Playlist. A quick shout out to Matt Walgie, because he definitely dropped the idea for the Blessed Playlist. So shout out to Matt Walgie for that idea.
Enjoy it. And another thing that you should enjoy in 2022. It's a time where this is at peak enjoyment, possibly. And that is leaving a voicemail on the Substance phone line.
Yes, sir.
You will have a great time talking.
Call us. Talk to your friends
to
at
the
the
answering machine, which will then get piped later at a different time into our ears. Us, your Substance hosts. So you can dial that phone line at 913-703-3883. Our contact information is on the website, thesubstancepod.com. If you'd like to send us an email there, you can go ahead and do that on there. Talk to us, your Substance hosts. Me, Trevor.
And Philip.
And Vincent.
Saying, see you next week.
On the Substance.
We gone.
We are already been gone, but here we're back. Be
It was
gone
a
again.
good 26-second recording.